Everywhere GBS.
Hello, viewer. Today's guest, the suffering of his mother led him to take up a course of action. This course of action turned into a mission that eventually culminated into a vision. He later formed an organization known as the Happy Kidney Foundation, an organization working to overcome kidney disease. With us in studio today, Ephantus Mohonyo, the founder and CEO of the Happy Kidney Foundation. Ephantus, karibu sana kwa studio.
Asante sana.
It's been a long time since we met, man.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while, yes.
So, and since then, what have you been up to?
I think it's been a journey, just reflecting on how far we've come.
Yeah.
So amazingly, of course, the foundation was born out of the challenges that we went through as a family, taking care of my late mom.
Yes.
And I think the most amazing opportunity with this particular interview is that it comes at the backdrop of her 10th anniversary
That's amazing.
since she's passed on. And so it's been a long journey of serving the society, but also a journey of self-discovery. I think the last time we had this sitting, I was pretty much a younger person than I am.
Sure. And also, I didn't mention to our viewers that me and you were classmates,
Yes.
studying a particular course,
Yes.
which surprisingly, none of us, I think since 2008, have not gone there. I don't know how long you've done.
Yeah, I think that just goes to show the power of passion.
Yes.
And focus. Maybe for the sake of our viewers, in brief, my mom suffered kidney failure for a span of 5 years, within which I got exposed to the different challenges that we were going through as a family, because I'm the last born, and I saw the struggle that my siblings and my father had, trying to mobilize resources to get her get the necessary support. But I also saw the gaps in terms of the healthcare delivery. I saw the numerous efforts put in by the nurses while taking care of the mom. I saw how stretched the nephrologists were, and just the overwhelming burden of having to try and sustain her life and the lives of the other Kenyans that were going through the same. Of course, during that season, one of the biggest challenges was access to information. And at the same time, there was the challenge of funds, because it's taking care of someone with non-communicable disease is extremely expensive, not just kidney failure, but any other lifestyle disease as we know it, because these are long-term ailments, and they tend to be very, very expensive. So as we went by, I wanted to make a contribution towards the same. That's when we did a walk with my friends, and again, that led me to interact with many more families. And as the days went by, and as we continued to find ways of navigating through the challenges, I realized there was much more that needed to be done. And the conversation then is not just about my mom. There were many other external factors that were, determining or having an influence or an impact leading to the place that we were at. And so that's how really the passion to start the foundation was born. But I think one of the things that I look back and I'm proud of is I always remember on the day that we laid her to rest. I stood boldly, as I think I was 19. I stood boldly before the community of friends and family that has gathered, and I made a pledge to constantly devote myself to find a solution. And I laid out my vision for the first time to the public. Of course, it seemed far-fetched. There are those who thought I was merely mourning my mom, but I think it's a cause that over time had gotten deeply embedded in my heart, and I was devoted to do it. Afterwards, there were other Kenyans that joined me, and that's how we were able to establish the foundation. The first few years, we had incredible opportunities. We've interacted with you.
Interacted together, yeah.
And then, of course, the past 5 years, I must admit, were seemingly the most difficult. You know, it's with every vision, there are seasons.
Sure.
And the 5 years were quite challenging in the sense that in terms of our ability to mobilize support, the changing environment and landscape in terms of the political goodwill, the economic factors were quite challenging. But again, it was also the most beautiful season when I think about it, because it has given clarity to the vision. And I think more than ever before, I sit here with a lot of clarity in terms of where we want to go with the foundation and the contribution we want to make.
No, I think that's very interesting. I mean, for those people who know about Haki Foundation, maybe if they'll go back and look at where it began and how it began. But also I would say thanks to the media, because personally I would admit, although I was also in the media, I was in the media at that time, but then I also was able to see the contribution by other media houses willing to bring you guys in, interview you, follow you during your walks, during the events that we held at Kenyatta and stuff. But then I would like us to discuss a little bit about the challenges that kind of were being faced. Particularly, I would like to point out to one that seemed to be like there's a solution that is being reached to. The legislation, especially the legislation that governs the transplant or donation of kidney in that matter. For many years, legislation was a problem until 2017 with the Health Act that allowed, you know, that gave guidelines on how this is supposed to be done. Maybe if you can just share with us, how has this legislation been of help to the work that you're doing, because I know you're really involved in that, to the work that you are doing? Would we say that this legislation has made it any easier in terms of, you know, transplant, donation, and reception of body organs, of kidney?
When I think backwards 10 years ago and I reflect and look at where we are, I think this is a proud moment for Kenyans. And I think one of the things I must say, I think it's also good and for us as Kenyans to sometimes be cognizant of the progress we're having. You know,
the strides that we're making as a country.
We have made immense progress, you know. Today, anyone needing dialysis, they're able to access dialysis. That was not the case. It was really difficult. People don't have to necessarily travel for hundreds of kilometers to access dialysis or queue for nights without an assurance even that they would be able to access that service. So I think that's one milestone that is commendable. The other aspect is in terms of the transplantation. Now we have more facilities that are able to provide transplantation services, and that trajectory is on the rise, and that is a good thing, because that has been also a very big hindrance in terms of where we are coming from. Notably, we now are talking about that conversation of people now having an opportunity to give their will, either written or orally,
Yes.
so that their organs can be harvested to assist other people who need them for, transplant purposes, but also for education, for learning
Yeah, for
purposes.
education, yeah.
So I think looking at where we are and looking at the days to come, I think we're at a very bright place as a country. But with that, of course, there are many issues that now have to be addressed. There are ethical issues
Yes.
to be looked into. There are questions we have to ask ourselves and be able to address as a nation. While we have the law, for instance,
Yes.
is it favorable for everyone? Does it discriminate in terms of race or religion?
No, right.
How do we ensure that we are inclusive in that? Is it affordable? Those are things to think about. Our institutional capacity needs to be strengthened so that now these institutions can actually be able to have a database of people needing the transplant, and that database needs to be accessible to not only the medical practitioners, but also the general public.
The general public, yeah.
We have to think about access in terms of enabling even the poor to be able to access the service. We have to think about the donors. How do we encourage more people to donate?
To donate, yeah.
We have to have a conversation around overcoming the barriers around our cultural beliefs,
barriers, yeah.
and even religion again. So that is where we are. The framework needs to be strengthened, and where it's lacking, it needs to be established. So I think we are at a good place. The law now gives the opportunity for these systems to be laid out, so that we can be able to help and give a lease of life to the people who desperately need it.
Let me draw in a little bit of a controversy here. Sale of organs. Recently, or in the near past, a very prominent TV personality got a lot of backlash from the publics, especially the KOTs. When he put up, suggestion and said, hey, kidney for sale, 2.5 M, who has that money? I mean, I need to clear some debt in the banks and stuff. I need to take care of my financial needs. Was this a bad thing? According to you, I mean, in your own opinion, of course, we've got numerous people out there who need kidney, who can afford kidney. Was this a bad thing, in your opinion?
Two things. First, it's illegal. Anyone who chooses to donate their organs, they should do so willingly. They should not be coerced. They should not be manipulated.
Yes.
The motivation should not be for financial gain. So the motivation was wrong. And sometimes it could be because of the desperate situation that a person is in, or also the lack of awareness. I mean, this is the highest sacrifice one can make.
To give out one
To
of
give
the
life,
kidneys,
it's a gift of life. It's a precious thing. It's an honorable thing to do.
saving a life.
Yeah, and so I think that's a discourse, and if you've been following us, you realize we have really now come out in a big way to sensitize the public so that there is an understanding of what the organ donation is all about. And by the way, it's not just the organ that can be donated.
Yes.
We also have the tissues, like the eye cornea,
Yes.
because it's not an organ,
Yeah.
it's a tissue.
It's a tissue.
And we have body cells, like we have the skin being transplanted, say, from one part to another. So it's such a precious thing to do, and it's honorable. And that's why it's important for us to have the right information. But at the same time, as you've said, it is also true, there are people who have the ability, that is in terms of monetary ability,
Yes.
and they are also desperate. They need these organs, and they can go out of their way to do whatever it takes to ensure that they access the organ. And that's why we must ensure that we have the right framework in place.
All right.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for me to say that the issue of organ donation is an issue that is highly controlled, even globally.
Yes.
You know, you must be aware that in India, especially in the 90s, we had a lot of black market, especially for the kidneys. And by the way, also organs and tissues contribute to organ trafficking, for organ harvesting. So it's also a very, very sensitive issue.
Yes.
While we want to give life, we must also protect life.
Protect life.
No one individual should lose their life, you know, at the expense of malicious people.
Well, the reason I ask this question is, again, like you mentioned, the government, the law that is in place right now prohibits any kind of sale of human organ. But if we look at the truth, I mean, if we look at the reality, shouldn't there be some level or some degree of leniency, at least to allow? Because in countries like India, like you mentioned, yes, of course, there are rampant cases of people being kidnapped and then their organs being taken away and being sold. But then don't you think that this can also bring some degree of sanity in terms of what you mentioned as, you know, organ harvesting and trafficking? Because if it's something that is out there in the public and it's known, then shouldn't there be a legislation that can guide people and tell people, hey, if you would like to do it, this is the right way to do it? And no one will be allowed to receive from an unknown donor and stuff like that. Like you just mentioned, rightfully, the 2017 Health Act actually allows that one can, if they're in the right state of mind, either write or orally commit to donate either their kidney to save another person's life or to be given to a learning institution for research.
I think you've raised a number of issues. I think the first, again, the motivation in my view must be right.
Must be right.
It must be, the motivation must be right. Because we are talking about life.
Yes.
And so the sanctity of life must be upheld. There are ethical issues that must be protected. So that is what concerns me. But the good thing, as I've told you, this is something that is regulated. You'll find in some countries, you have, there are countries whereby the law they have adopted allows that when a citizen passes on,
Yes.
they are actually considered to be donors, unless they have otherwise, declared in their will. Otherwise, they are considered to be donors.
All right.
There are other countries that follow a different line of thought, where you have to commit to donate your organs, and they have things like the pledge cards, whereby, you know, in case they are found to be brain dead, then their organs can be harvested. So different countries will approach the matter in a different way. Yeah, but I uphold the thought that it should be, the motivation should be right. It shouldn't be done for trade. But there is a good thing you've raised, that is something to be considered. In this conversation, the donors are left out, and they are the people that make the greatest contribution and make it possible.
In terms of saving the lives.
Yes. So the question then would be, how do we how do we appreciate or support the donors for that matter?
Who come forward to
donate,
Yeah.
and especially live donors. And in Kenya at the moment, the donation we have of organs is that of live donors, and it's mostly to relatives. Again, this has a lot to do with ethical issues, controlling that aspect of making sure that one is not coerced. Because how then do you get to say that this person is known and that other person is not known?
That's another issue. Well, someone would also want to reason out and say, hey, just because, since we are family, and then there's a match, then don't you think sometimes the family also coerces, members of the family to donate because, hey, there's a life at stake here. Your organ matches, and you can be a possible donor. Have you ever come across such cases or heard of such cases where family members themselves do that?
The truth is, it's possible. Yeah. However, there are processes that filter that.
Right.
There is vigorous counseling that goes through before the person actually gets to donate.
Okay.
And by the way, there are very many people who opt out.
All right.
So by the time the actual transplantation is being done, this person will have been able to determine whether they are doing it because they are coerced or because they
really want,
have purpose to do it.
Well, you'll hold that thought. When we come back in the second segment, I would like us to talk more of what Happy Kidney Foundation is doing right now with the community, some of the programs that you guys are running, and possibly let us also look at the demographics in terms of the changes that have been since you entered the industry, and what are the improvements and what are the areas which are still not improving, and what the public, actually the people of Kenya, can do to also participate in this work. Well, viewer, if you are just joining us, you're watching The People Show. Our guest today is Ephantus Muhonyo, the founder and CEO of the Happy Kidney Foundation, an organization that works towards ensuring that people live healthy in terms of watching the kidney. Now, we take a short break. When we come back, we have more for you. If you have any comments, suggestions, or opinion, send us an SMS on 21144. 21144 is the number, or you can send us an email on info@gbskenya.com.
People have dominance over themselves. Why? Daddy, no money. Give me money, I'll buy for you. Hey, Daddy, I say I don't have money. Hey, I know, Daddy.
Can the Ethiopian change his skin? Or the leopard its spots?
예수님이 우리의 모든 죄값을 다 지불하시기 때문에 예수님 다 이루었다라고 말씀하셨잖아요.
So Jesus paid for all the wages of our sin. That's why he could say it is finished.
Yesu alipa mshahara wa dhambi deni zetu lote, ndiposa akasema kwamba imekwisha.
하나님은 슈퍼컴퓨터와 같은 분이에요.
Everyone, God is like the supercomputer.
Upendo wa Mungu ni kama hii supercomputer.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Val's Kitchen.
Everywhere, GBS.
How many of you use your real names on Facebook? Wengine ni Sweetie Pretty.
You must succeed in being an eagle and not a chicken.
I'm seeing myself owning the biggest media house in Africa. Yes, I could employ you, in fact. Yes.
All right, now it is going to another direction. But let's
When you are born and when you grow up, now you do the work. You become a person who likes the country. You understand, right? I mean, not getting a job at Kenya Power, right?
And you know what? Who you are online is exactly who you are offline. And who you are offline is who you are online.
여러 군데 가서 강연을 많이 해보는데
So I've been to many places to give lectures.
우나일레 와서 이러면
Whenever I say "Unaile wa sasa,"
눈썹으로 인사를 대답을 해.
they respond with their eyebrows. Hello everyone. Hello everyone.
Hello, children.
Hello, watoto.
Hello everyone.
Taki kuona Yesu, ndio.
Hi, my name is Zawadi. At Mahanaim, I studied to qualify for the IGCSE through the Cambridge International Educational Program.
We Mahanaim International High School students enjoy extracurricular activities such as joining GBS TV Club, Taekwondo, cultural dance, orchestra, swimming, foreign languages, community service, and much more. I believe this unique experience I gained here will go a long way into strengthening the future me.
The teachers and other ministers at Mahanaim spared no pain in running with us until the end of the mile, until we secured all of our goals. And that's how I passed my IGCSE exams.
Mahanaim International High School cares about my future. Beyond our education, Mahanaim nurtures us to have bright and healthy mind so that we could become great future leaders.
We're going to be in the kitchen learning how to do a few tricks. I hope that you're going to get the chance to cook this in your homes because it's very quick, it's very healthy, and it's very delicious. It's so nice. I love it. I know.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, you're watching The People Show on your favorite station, GBS TV. Today on studio, we have with us Ephantus Muhonyo, the founder and CEO of the Happy Kidney Foundation. Ephantus,
Yes.
right before the break, during the break actually, we were talking about your agenda this time what your organization is really pushing. And I had actually, before the break, asked, what are some of the projects that you guys are doing now in terms of reaching out to the people and the kind of awareness that you guys are trying to create. Maybe you can just share that with us a little as we proceed.
Okay. So first, the vision of Happy Kidney Foundation is a healthy, health-conscious society in which all young men and women live lives that are free from harmful behaviors and lifestyle. So one of the things that we continue to do even now is to drive particularly the younger generation towards adopting a healthier lifestyle. And so we are focusing a lot on giving people the right information in terms of nutrition and diet. Another thing that is of importance, last year we conducted research. We did a study in two of the leading hospitals, the public and in our private hospital. And we wanted to understand the state of healthcare for end-stage renal disease patients within the Nairobi County.
All right.
The study gave us results that were somehow surprising to me, because majority of the people who are on dialysis, between 0 to 3 years on dialysis, meaning they had reached the end stage, they had the end stage kidney disease, or their kidneys had completely failed, and therefore they needed support through a machine, what we call hemodialysis. Majority of these people were between the age of 21 years of age to 45 years of age.
21 to 45.
Yes. You'll be surprised to note, when we talk about when my mom was suffering from kidney failure and she was in her 60s, at the time majority were the senior, in the senior curve of the population. But the reality has shifted today. In 2011, the United Nations, during the annual General Assembly, that is the time when the non-communicable diseases agenda was actually adopted. We are now at a place where there is a shift from what we call the communicable diseases, the malaria, the HIVs and what have you. And now we have the rising burden of non-communicable diseases. Things like diabetes in Kenya is an epidemic now. We've seen what cancer is doing, crippling families.
Sure.
According to WHO, in the next 5 years or so, the leading cause of death will be non-communicable diseases. And even in terms of the allocation of the finances, it goes without saying, it goes to non-communicable diseases.
Sure.
So with that in mind, our focus right now, and it's also important for me to say, of course, right now the current government, one of their agendas is health. And we've seen the contribution they've made, particularly in ensuring that more people now can access dialysis, which is a good thing. But then it moves us to the issue of things like quality. But most importantly, now that we have many people who can access dialysis, noting that the majority of them are young, while NHIF is doing a good job paying for their dialysis, the question is, can they sustain it? Because if you have a majority of young people on dialysis between 0 to 3 years, then it's rightful to say that without a doubt, you have a majority of people who will be on dialysis for at least 3 years. And NHIF spends about 1 million per patient on dialysis. So it means NHIF will spend about 3 million shillings per patient over the 3-year span. Transplantation at Kenyatta is about 500,000. The cost of immunosuppressant drugs, which is the drugs that are required for life to protect the kidney that has been transplanted, is in the range of about 30,000 per month. So if, and right now NHIF is also supporting transplantation, but then there is the burden of the drugs. So in my view, if they could be able to support these people to go through very fast the process of transplantation, it would reduce the burden on them. And then they need to support them with the drugs, because otherwise it would be in vain. We don't want people getting the gift of life and then they end up losing it just because they could not access medication. Yet it is still a cheaper avenue or approach for NHIF to support them through making sure they access medication. And of course, it's also still possible to find ways to reduce this burden. With that in mind, it informs the need for the foundation to focus on demystifying organ donation. There are many issues now that needs to be addressed. We must move swiftly to be able to create an environment that ensures that more people now can get to organ donation, that we can have more transplants. And this has to do with institutional strengthening, dealing with the issues of cost, just like I've alluded, and even the post-transplant care. So that is the space we are in as a foundation, and that's really the primary focus at the moment.
If I may just drag you back a little to what you just explained. You raised this issue where we have more young people within, among the people who are actually suffering from this condition. You have been raising awareness on healthy lifestyles. Does this mean that our society today is eating more unhealthy food, is living a more unhealthy lifestyle, if I may put it like that? Because the increase of number in young people, like you mentioned, is worrying compared to 10 years ago, where there's that age that was mostly related to the condition.
It's a combination of many things. One, our lifestyle choices. We have a growing economy. Now you have more and more young people who are financially independent than we had before. And that means they have the free will to engage in all manner of things. We see how people, the good life, people drinking left, right, and center Monday to Sunday. The nature of our work, we have more people being clustered in the cities. So guys we talk of Kenyans on Twitter. So we are not as mobile as we used to be. So we are not physically fit. But sadly, an observation is also the behaviors and lifestyles that are being passed on from parents to children. So if you have a parent who has been indulging in a negative behavior and lifestyle, and they introduce their child to such a lifestyle. I mean, we have children who are taking alcohol when they are merely 10 years of age. It takes tentatively about 10 to 15 years for kidney failure to progress to end stage. So that person would be 25 years
Then,
max.
having said that, then do you think that including or allowing children to learn such things like what you guys are teaching in school would be a boost in terms of educating your children themselves? Because most of the parents today I know in this generation, because for the love of the children, they tend to do more what the children ask for as opposed to what the parents themselves impose or want for the children. Don't you think that will also create some kind of awareness and try and curb this before it gets to that, you know, out of hand?
I think it's both. In my view, it is important to reach the parent because it's the parent who, at the initial, the initial stages of life, they're the ones that are responsible for the choices. They're the ones who give their children allowances. They give them money to go and eat at the fast food restaurants because they are busy hustling.
Which are rampantly growing in Nairobi today. I mean,
they have to.
few hundred meters
Kenyans
away.
are busy. They've got to hustle, isn't it? But I think the question, and this is the question I was reflecting on this morning, in terms of the priority, Kenyan parents in particular, they have to ask themselves, and even as responsible adults, we have to ask ourselves, in terms of our priorities, where is health? Is it number 1? Is it number 20 in our list? Or is it at the bottom of the priorities? And sadly, I can assure you, there are many people moving around who they've never sat for a moment to think about their health.
So health is nowhere even in the top 10?
It's
top
not
10
a priority. I mean,
on a scale of 1 to 10, mobilize all Kenyans together, what will you give us as a nation?
it's down there.
Number 10?
I'm not sure whether it's 10 or 8, but it's certainly not top priority for most Kenyans. I'll give you a simple example. If you look at most young people, or even you look at parents having a discourse with their young adults, the conversation will be around, I want you to get good grades. Do you have a memory of a conversation you had with your parent about your health?
You need to eat vegetables because these are good for. I mean,
Yeah,
who
it's an
likes
investment.
vegetables?
It's not about liking. It's about what matters. You know, if you get a good grade, get a good job, get a big car, and get a big house, and then you cannot live in it because half of your time you're in the hospital. Of what good is it?
Yeah, it's of no use indeed.
But sadly, that's the reality.
So Kenyans should move more towards creating awareness and also, you know, engaging in discourse in terms of engaging their children in talking about, realizing about the importance of health.
Yes, it's a culture that we build at home. You know, what do you eat? How do you eat? And the truth is, making an effort towards a healthy living has a cost to it, you know. And it's not just monetary. It's also that conscious decision to go and look for the fruits, prepare the vegetables, prepare them for yourselves at the house, you know, clean them. How are they prepared? You know, constantly watching to see that you are taking the balanced diet and actually going out to learn on the right foods and how to do it. So it's an education that needs to happen from home, even before we can even talk of going to the institutions of learning. And by the way, when you talk of nutrition and diet, what I find intriguing is it is actually more affordable in terms of cost to engage in a healthier diet than it is on the fast foods.
If you just buy your fruits here.
Yeah, I mean,
Prepare
how
your
much
vegetable.
does spinach cost?
Sure. Maybe 200 or 400 per kg or something.
It's something that any Kenyan can access. Poverty is a crippling animal, and I think that's why, as a country, we must constantly work towards overcoming poverty, because it is not the making of an individual to necessarily find themselves in a poor state. I mean, so that is an unfortunate place to be. But the reality with lifestyle diseases is that it's unfortunately also not a respecter of persons. It cuts across the board, both the poor and the rich. I think the approach that is important, this is what I truly believe. We can all do something regardless of where we are. We can make use of the little that we have. I think it's about making that conscious decision to improve the quality of your life with the little that you have.
Yes.
And surprisingly, most of the people that we would consider to be the lowest in the society, they actually are more on the balanced scale sometimes than the people that you would otherwise think that they're eating healthy. Because you'll find them feeding on protein. They'll be maybe having their lunch as beans. They'll probably do greens because they may not do the meat. So it's not necessarily a clear-cut assumption. But I think at an individual level, the most important thing is that we have to reach as many people as we can to tell them to consider and prioritize their health. I have found people who argue that you cannot prevent a disease or predetermine what will happen.
Yes.
And it is true. I mean, just like nobody knows about death,
But
you cannot be responsible.
Sure.
We've got to do what we can with the opportunity that we are given. Nobody knows about tomorrow, but
take precaution.
Yeah, we have to do what we can today. But I think as a country, poverty is something that we must constantly work towards eradicating. And I mean, it's important to say one of the issues that must be dealt with is corruption, because there is a lot that government can do to supplement and to support the people who are below the dollar.
You mentioned something about creating awareness on issues to do with organ donation in Kenya today. In the first half when we were talking, I mean, there's this controversial issues that we touched on. But then, how educated is the Kenyan public when it comes to organ donation, especially when it comes to the areas of kidney donation and transplant? In your own take, as you work with people in society, and as you do your own studies and engage with the community and create this awareness, what's the kind of feedback do you get from the public in terms of awareness of this?
I'd say awareness is lacking. And I wouldn't blame them. I think growth is progressive. And now we are that place where we can now talk about organ donation. I mean, 10 years ago, we were struggling to access dialysis, for instance. Yes. We did not have facilities that could do liver transplantation, for instance. We did not have, some years ago, the bank for the cornea. Now we have it at Lions. Yes. So I think this is the time. This is the time for the education to happen, and because now we have an opportunity to do something. We have, for instance, the law that gives guideline and actually allows for discourse to happen.
The move by the Jubilee administration, the Big Four agenda, the issue of health is one of the key areas that they're taking very seriously. Would you say that this has contributed in terms of making it better for the society, for kidney patients, and also maybe probably just creating the awareness in the general, among the general public, that health is indeed pertinent to the production for a productive nation?
I'm always a very optimistic person. And from where I stand, despite the myriad of challenges that we may have, I would say that we are pointing at the right direction. There is a time that I possibly wouldn't even get an interview to come and share, just because the focus is health. So the fact that we have this as an issue that is being brought to a place of prioritization at the national level is a big plus.
As we conclude, what would you say, what part would you like the Kenyan public to play in terms of working together with the Happy Kidney Foundation in creating awareness, especially on the issue that you highlighted, which is your main focus at this time to do with the donation of organs? What message would you like to put out there for the public?
I would want to say it's about time that we embrace our own. The solutions to the challenges that we face lies within our borders. And so if you find someone who has an idea that can make a positive contribution towards alleviating the challenges that we face as a nation or communities, please hold their hands if you can, open your networks to them, celebrate them, support them, encourage them. Nobody will come and provide civilization for Kenya. It's got to be done by Kenyans. And I'm absolutely passionate about that. And I think it's time. It's time for us to support each other, not to be a man-eat-man society, but to really forge forward as a country. At the wake of Handshake, I think this is really a good time to really do that.
Well, Ephantus Mahonyo, thank you very much for coming and honoring our invitation to come to the People Show. It's great having you, and I hope that, God willing, we'll also be working with you.
Thank you.
We've done that before, and we don't intend to stop anytime soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Coming.
Asante sana.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Well, viewer, we have come to the end of our program today. For any comments, suggestions, or opinion that you'd like directed to our guests today, you can send that to our SMS line. That's 21144. 21144 is the number. Or you can also drop us an email on info@gbskenya.com. My name is Timothy Omondi. Thank you very much once again for joining us. Until next time, bye-bye for now, and God bless you.